everyone, Maki here! The MSV and Astray series are spin-offs of the Gundam Seed series. These projects brought to life mobile suits that never appeared in the TV anime, while delving deeper into the world of cosmic era. Among the many mobile suits introduced by these projects, one that has gained a lot of popularity is the Sword Calamity Gundam. It's a different version of the Calamity Gundam that appeared in the TV anime. Thanks to its popularity, it was released as a plastic model and even received new lore in a later spin-off, Seed Eclipse. Originally, the Sword Calamity was introduced with the concept of being a modified version of the Calamity Gundam that emphasizes close combat capabilities. In past MSV material, it was said that this mobile suit was created under a plan called the Rebuild 1416 program. Seed Eclipse reveals more about the Rebuild 1416 program and adds some minor updates to its backstory. So this time, let's dive into an analysis of the Sword Calamity Gundam with this new setting in mind. Ready to get started? Then I want you to climb into the Sword Calamity Gundam and start it up. Press the subscribe button to activate Sword Calamity Unit 2. If you press the like button, you choose to enter Unit 3. Can't tell them apart because they're all the same color. Then press the bell button to board Unit 1. Let's strike down the enemy with the wrath of the sword, all in the name of freedom. The GATX 105 Strike Gundam, a new mobile suit developed by the Earth Alliance forces, demonstrated incredible performance. It fought against the other 4 GATX series units developed at the same time and managed to survive on numerous battlefields. What's more, the GATX series units stolen by Zaft were pirated by ace pirates, who had earned the right to wear red uniforms. The proven effectiveness of the Strike Gundam in actual combat prompted the Earth Alliance forces to initiate the Rebuild 1416 program. This plan aimed to further refine and improve the use of the striker packs. Its concept was not limited to simply swapping weapons. It envisioned a multi-purpose weapon capable of handling a wide range of situations by swapping not only armaments, but also software and limb components, all within a single mobile suit platform. To realize this plan, it was decided to use the X100 series frame. Known for achieving highly human-like articulation, the X100 frame had structural characteristics that made it a perfect fit for the Rebuild 1416 project. The redesigned Calamity was born. From there, the idea was born to develop specialized equipment sets for the Calamity, one for flight, one for melee, and one for artillery. X130 became the A-Ru Calamity Gundam. X131 was the Artillery Calamity Gundam. Finally, X133 was completed as the Sword Calamity Gundam. So why wasn't the Artillery Calamity Gundam called the Launcher Calamity Gundam? Actually, the reason lies in the request of the Earth Alliance forces. The military first requested the development of a mobile suit with powerful artillery capabilities. Following this request from the military, which was the main source of funding and the largest customer, the Artillery-specific Calamity Gundam was prioritized and developed first. Although the Calamity Gundam was intended to be a base for a multi-purpose unit, the rush to complete the artillery variant caused delays in the development of the other forms. Since its design was heavily geared toward artillery warfare, many parts had to be redesigned to accommodate the other variants, resulting in the A-Ru Calamity, the unit with the lowest model number, being completed last. the Sword Calamity was also completed after the artillery variant. However, it was used early in actual combat, participating in the victorious Phase 4 recapture operation on June 18, 71. The artillery-type Calamity Gundam was used in the Orb Liberation operation on June 15, 71. In the Battle of Victoria Base, many Zaft mobile suits were defeated by the Sword Calamity, and the operation ended in victory for the Earth Alliance forces. In the Orb Liberation operation, the Calamity Gundam didn't have much to show for itself. However, that's how it was judged by the Earth Alliance commanders, who didn't know the full capabilities of the Freedom Gundam or the Justice Gundam. Had the Calamity Gundam and its allies not held off the Freedom Gundam and others, the Orb Liberation operation would likely have ended in a crushing defeat for the Earth Alliance. The various Calamity units, each with completely different characteristics, achieved results worthy of being called multi-purpose machines. In the end, however, the Earth Alliance forces decided to adopt the Dagger-type mobile suits as their primary units due to their lower cost and mass production viability. As a result, the rebuilt 1416 program based on the Calamity was effectively halted. Only 3 prototype Sword Calamity units were produced, and they were never formally adopted. The Sword Calamity was completed as a powerful mobile suit, but was never officially adopted by the Earth Alliance forces. The only explanation given is that since the Dagger type was adopted as the mainline mobile suit, the Calamity series was not selected as the primary weapon. No detailed reason is given. However, by looking at the Dagger series settings, the reason becomes clear. Let's start with the Dagger L. The Dagger L was designed with the goal of keeping combat capabilities as close to the 105 Dagger as possible, while keeping production costs closer to the Strike Dagger. Its beam carbine sacrifices single-shot firepower for improved rapid-fire performance. It's a mobile suit designed for group combat. In addition, Earth Alliance mobile suits are equipped with auxiliary systems to compensate for the piloting skills of naturals. In Sea Destiny, the simple movement of the wind reflects this attitude. In other words, mobile suits like the Sword Calamity, which are designed to engage the enemy at close range, don't fit well with the Earth Alliance style of combat. Melee combat requires more complex movements than ranged combat. This makes it more difficult to coordinate with the Earth Alliance's software, which is built around simpler, more predictable movement patterns. In addition, the role of powerful standalone combat weapons has been relegated to mobile armors instead. With multiple crew members on board, they could make more complex decisions than a single pilot could make alone. The Earth Alliance forces have far more personnel than Zaft. Zaft chose mobile suits as their primary weapon because they could be piloted by a single person. This helped compensate for one of the major weaknesses of a coordinator nation, its limited population compared to naturals. On the other hand, if the Earth Alliance wanted a powerful weapon, it made more sense to have it piloted by multiple crew members. There was no need to insist on the single pilot concept, as Zaft did. And so the Sword Calamity was never adopted as an official weapon of the Earth Alliance forces. Let's take a look at the equipment of the Sword Calamity. The Calamity Gundam was known for being heavily armed, but interestingly it was actually lighter than the Buster Gundam. The fact that it remained lighter than the Buster Gundam even when fully equipped reflects its design as a base unit for a multi-purpose mobile suit. As a result, The Sword Calamity, which replaces its weapons with melee-focused equipment, has exceptionally high mobility. Surprisingly, its exact weight has never been officially revealed. The first weapon we'll take a look at is the Tsukilo. It's the same type of weapon that was installed on the Aegis Gundam and was adopted as standard equipment on the Calamity. Designed primarily for melee combat, the Sword Calamity's power has been reduced to 70%. However, for a typical mobile suit weapon, it still has a strong destructive power. Since it's a body-mounted weapon, it can be fired without using the arms, which is another advantage. In a battle between Sword Calamity Units 1 and 2, Lina Emilia used the Tsukilo effectively to corner Edward Harrison. Next is the Beam Boomerang, the Midas Messer. Though the design has changed, it's the same weapon used in the Sword Striker pack. To make room for the Beam Boomerang, the shoulder thrusters have been removed. However, thanks to the Sword Calamity's lighter overall load, its maneuverability has not suffered. Now for the wire anchor, the Panzer Eisen. This is an improved version of the weapon used on the Sword Striker. Unlike the Sword Striker's version, which only launched the claw section, this one fires the entire shield section. The claw's grip is extremely strong, and when combined with the mobility of the Calamity, it can even swing enemies around. In the battle, Lina's Sword Calamity swung around Edward's unit, knocking it down and creating a massive opening. Then we have the anti-ship sword, the Schwartz Veil. This is a finished version of the prototype design for the Sword Striker. The handle has been resized for one-handed use. Combined with the power of the Calamity, it has enough power to instantly slice through Zafstein units with one hand. In addition, the laser cannon function that was omitted from the prototype has been added here. It can be fired from a barrel at the end of the hilt. In the promotional material for the plastic model, it fires at a very high rate. It appears to be a weapon that focuses on rapid fire rather than raw power. It can also generate a beam saber. Later, the sword weapon used by the Perfect Strike Gundam in official illustrations, and Gunpro was also shown to be capable of emitting a beam saber from the back of the hilt. As I mentioned earlier, the version used by the Strike Gundam was a prototype with the laser cannon function, deliberately omitted. It isn't clear whether the settings have been changed, or whether the Schwartz Veil equipped on the Perfect Strike Gundam is an improved version. The Sword Calamity's Schwartz Veil can also be combined into a more powerful beam break by joining the two swords together. It is also equipped with the Armor Schneider and anti-armor combat knife. It's the same type of weapon used by the Strike Gundam. The folding mechanism was removed in this version. Because of its modest appearance, it's often left out in games and other media. Now, let's take a look at the exploits of the Sword Calamity. As a mobile suit that has gained a great deal of popularity, it's had some notable moments. In terms of fully demonstrating its power, its appearances in the Astray series stand out. Edward Harrison, the pilot of the Sword Calamity Unit 2, was a soldier of the Earth Alliance forces. Originally from the United States of South America, he became an Earth Alliance soldier after his country was forcibly annexed by the Atlantic Federation. Edward also participated in the final battle between the Earth Alliance and the Zaft. However, lacking loyalty to the Earth Alliance, he deserted after the war and returned to the United States of South America. In his quest for independence for his homeland, the Sword Calamity turned against the Earth Alliance forces. to defeat Edward, who had won numerous victories. The Earth Alliance sent Lena Emelier. She was an instructor for mobile suit pilots and had once been Edward's mentor. Though she's often introduced as the pilot of the Buster Dagger, Lena was more than a sniper. She was highly skilled in all aspects of mobile suit piloting. Lena boarded the Sword Calamity Unit 1 and challenged Edward to a fight. Edward possessed advanced melee combat skills, but that was also his weakness. Lena had figured out that Edward relied too much on attacks with his greatsword. Using all of the Sword Calamity's weapons, Lena backed Edward into a corner. Both pilots launched their final attacks. Edward broke Lena's bow with his shoulder armor and charged forward with his Sword Calamity. Since it was a duel between identical units, Edward knew the durability of the Sword Calamity's armor and the firepower of the Suikilo. He understood that he could somehow withstand Suikilo's power. His Sword Calamity quickly closed the gap. Any average pilot would have lost to Edward at that point. But Lena instinctively raised her greatsword to block Edward's attack. The crush of their great swords shattered Lena's blade. Sword Calamity Unit 1 was defeated, and Lena lost the battle. Lena had correctly identified Edward's reliance on his greatsword as a weakness. However, through constant use of the greatsword, Edward had learned to wield it with unparalleled skill. It was this difference in technique that ultimately led to Lena's defeat. Sometime after this confrontation, the Junius Treaty was signed between the Earth Alliance and Grant. This treaty contained a clause requiring that national borders be returned to their pre-war state. The war between the Earth Alliance and the Front began on February 11, C70, when the Earth Alliance officially declared war. On February 18, C70, they began their armed annexation of South America. With the signing of the Treaty of Junius, the conflict involving Edward and the Sword Calamity came to an end. After the war, the remnants of the Sword Calamity were abandoned on the battlefield. Its purpose served. However, it was discovered that Kite Madigan had recovered both Lena and Edward's Sword Calamity units. He was a freelance mobile suit pilot with a hobby of collecting rare mobile suits. Kite told Just Rubble, "If Edward ever asks for them back, I'll return them." The Sword Calamity is a really cool mobile suit. The paint scheme of Unit 1, piloted by Lena Emelier, is especially distinctive and interesting. It looks like a green Calamity Gundam with red Sword Calamity parts. This reflects the in-universe setting that the Sword Calamity was redesigned based on the artillery-type Calamity Gundam. But in fact, real-world circumstances also played a role. When the Sword Calamity was first introduced, it hadn't yet gained the popularity it enjoys today. As a result, the chances of it getting an official Gunpro release were pretty slim. In this context, a model hobby magazine included bonus parts to make it easier to rebuild the Sword Calamity. With these parts, fans could convert their Calamity Gundam Gunpro into a Sword Calamity. However, unless they repainted the body of the Calamity Gundam red, it couldn't fully match the appearance of the Sword Calamity. The magazine came up with a fun workaround to make the project enjoyable even for beginners. That's how the Sword Calamity Unit 1 was born. By simply attaching the red parts to a green Calamity Gundam, one could accurately recreate Unit 1. In 2024, a full mechanics gameplay of the Sword Calamity was officially released. It might be fun to combine it with the Calamity Gundam to recreate the look of the Sword Calamity Unit 1. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next Mobile Suit analysis.